Hello class, good evening. This is Juliana Alfonso and this is my submission to Module 12's video discussion post. I hope you all are doing well. We made it to the last discussion post, yay. This week we're reviewing gender and age and ethical decision making. We're presented with several readings this week, including research that supports the differences that have been found in ethical reasoning between males and females. Among the research, we have findings from Chen et al., which state that when female managers, their male counterparts are more willing to justify business-related unethical behaviors. Additionally, we're told that those gender differences become more exaggerated and pronounced when we consider other cultural dimensions. In a separate piece of research, we review ethical decision-making in international business situations, and we find that females exhibited higher intentions to act more ethically than males across both the US and Spanish executives that they were studying. One of the pieces that I enjoyed the most from this week's reading was the writing from Stanford on feminist ethics. I appreciated the writing explicitly reviewing the binary view of gender, and particularly noting how exclusive that binary view may inadvertently marginalize those who do not conform to a gender binary. I think that's very important as we think about gender, but also gender identity. And I'll also say that as a female and as a Hispanic, I also appreciated the article's in-depth discussion of intersectionality. For this week's discussion post, we're asked to review Bill O'Reilly's situation and the settlement, and particularly discuss what role, if any, gender bias or unconscious bias played. To me, it's interesting that we're reviewing Bill O'Reilly's case in relation to unconscious bias, which we know that unconscious bias unknowingly stems from our background, cultural environment, and personal experiences. The New York Times reporting shares information that leads us to believe that Mr. O'Reilly was guilty of having inappropriate contact or communications with his female counterparts, which often led in $1 million agreements that were made to settle the sexual harassment allegations. When we review these kinds of situations, we really have to consider if the situation was due to unconscious bias or if this behavior was knowingly inappropriate and a potential abuse of power. In this case, we find that Mr. O'Reilly is being accused by multiple instances and by multiple parties, and thus it would make it difficult for one to believe that any kind of unconscious bias was used. One could, however, make a case that gender bias is in place, where perhaps Mr. O'Reilly felt that his membership in an elite group of male leaders was superior to his female counterparts, and that perhaps could have perpetuated his behavior where he felt that maybe his membership as a non-minority granted him liberty from any potential discipline. And he might have been right with that. I mean, eventually he was dismissed from the company, but he did walk away with a $25 million settlement, which again really begs the question of whether that gender bias that Mr. O'Reilly perhaps felt protected of, whether he was right to feel that way. The last question asks us what other examples of gender or age-based ethical challenges or dilemmas and how we should analyze them. That's tough. In the Harvard Business Review article, we're presented with research that suggests that men and women are often not tasked the same, and particularly the article mentions that in a research that was conducted, the male project budgets were twice as big and 3 times as staff as their female counterparts. And this quickly reminded me of a research situation I had in my workplace. I received a call from a junior female employee who felt that she was often being overlooked for projects that she was qualified for. At the time, she was reporting to a male leader. And after getting flustered and not getting enough feedback from her leader as to why she wasn't getting those assignments, she raised her concerns to the HR department. And at that time, we did ask her to document her concerns, and her concerns were subsequently reviewed and acted upon. But outside of my workplace, there are also several other instances of gender and age ethical challenges. For instance, after winning the World Cup, the U.S. female soccer team filed a motion against the U.S. soccer organization for gender discrimination. The filing shared that despite winning the World Cup, the female players were paid less than the U.S. men's soccer players, and that was true even though that the men's soccer team lost early into the World Cup competition. And again, this is just, it's one very high profile, high visibility example, but there are several other that exist in smaller organizations. And it points to the greater idea and importance of studying the role that gender and age play in ethical decision making. Thank you.